Welcome to Making Sense of the Madness. We got a great show lined up for you today. It's official. Kamala Harris for president, Democratic Party style, here to talk about it. And his new book is Trevor Loudon. You're not going to want to miss it. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness. The book is Stealth, Kamala Harris's Communist Roots, and the author is Trevor Loudon. Trevor now joins us. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I've had you on before. We've talked extensively about not only communism, socialism, Marxism, collectivism, etc., but where it is modern day. And, quite frankly, there were a lot of people out there that people were calling conspiracy theorists that said that Joe Biden was not going to be the nominee, despite that debate being set up, etc. It seems now that that was set up in the manner it was to ensure that he would step down. A lot of people didn't think it was going to be Kamala Harris. You had pundits like Roger Stone and others predicting Michelle Obama, etc. Gavin Newsom was on the table. Kamala gets it. Now, for a party that calls themselves the Democratic Party and constantly, quote unquote, fighting for democracy, this has been the most undemocratic process of all time. And I would argue, you look at the last three presidential primaries, Democrat style, and you have 2016, they clearly stole from Bernie Sanders. 2020, you had people strategically dropping out in order to ensure Biden, a dementia patient, got in. He wasn't cleaning up at the primaries. You had people like Klobuchar and Pete Bootlicker, et cetera, that are up there at the DNC giving their speeches that, again, dropped out just to make sure this was the guy. Fast forward to 2024, it goes over the top, dark cartoon style, where not one American citizen voted for Kamala Harris to be the nominee for the president of the United States. She had a viable opposition in the very beginning with someone like RFK Jr., who they totally stalled out and now appears is going to be dropping out of the race. So where are we really? Now they've got this woman. For me, she doesn't seem like an ideologue only for power and will basically go with whatever the agenda is. So what are your thoughts, Trevor?
No, she is an ideologue. She's a red diaper baby. She was brought up by Marxist parents. Her whole life has been surrounded by hardcore communists, pro-Chinese Maoists. She knows no other way of thinking. When she talks about from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs, it was just classic Marxism. She means it. When she talks about upending the world, she means it. When she talks about being unburdened from history, she means it. She is a through and through ideological Marxist. But you made some points just then. Look, when Joe Biden was put in, that was to get Kamala Harris in. That Joe Biden was the only one who could stop Bernie. It was either going to be Bernie or Joe, and they wanted Joe because he would put Kamala on the VP ticket. So what I'm saying here is that there's been a big Maoist communist infiltration of the Democratic Party and American society since the 1960s, when all the student radicals loved Mao Zedong and Ho Chi Minh and Fidel Castro. Well, they're now running the Democrat, or a section of the Democratic Party. They gave us Obama. They gave us Andrew Gillum in Georgia. In Florida, they gave us Stacey Abrams in Georgia. They gave us Cory Booker in New Jersey. And Kamala has always been their puppet. I was saying in 2018, Kamala would be on the ticket in 2020. And by a roundabout way, she was. And I was saying that she would be the candidate now, too. She is put in place by pro-Chinese Maoists. This is completely planned.
So let's talk about it. How does she end up in the position she is in California on her way up to becoming a senator? A lot of people like myself are obviously aware of her relationship with Willie Brown. the ex-mayor of San Francisco. By the way, everybody, who's still around and pretty damn coherent for a 90-year-old. I just watched some of his
Yes.
commentary last week, much more than Joe Biden, by the way. I'm just throwing it out there. That guy seems much more with it. So she gets there. What is that process that she gets into that position on her way up to the Senate?
Well, look, basically the thing that everybody misses about this is that Willie Brown was also a communist. He was put in place by the Communist Party USA. His first election was run by K.O. Hallinan back in the 50s, the leader of the local Communist Party youth. He worked with the Communist Party right into the early 2000s, well after his relationship with Kamala. Then he and Dianne Feinstein basically became China's best friend in the US Senate, in the Bay Area. But the key person to watch is a man called Steve Phillips. Now, Steve Phillips was a young Maoist radical who knew the Harris family, but he married into the Sandler family. This was one of the richest families in San Francisco, the Golden West Savings and Loan Fortune. $13 billion, I believe, they sold it to Wachovia for. And they put $1.3 billion into the progressive movement. Steve Phillips got Barack Obama ahead of Hillary Clinton. Steve Phillips got Stacey Abrams almost to the governorship of Georgia, Andrew Gillum in Florida, Cory Booker in New Jersey, and he paid for Kamala Harris's run for DA in San Francisco, for her run for Attorney General in California, for her run for US Senate in California, and he got it on the ticket. And by the way, Kamala Harris, Steve Phillips also got Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, Tony West, at number 3 in the Justice Department under Eric Holder, and now Tony West is proposed to be part of Kamala Harris's cabinet. So Steve Phillips is a Maoist. He was a member of the League of Revolutionary Struggle, a pro-Chinese communist. So the pro-Chinese communist forces have backed Kamala's career every single step of the way.
So when we look at her time,
still are now.
So when we look at her time in California, both as a prosecutor and then a senator, what are some of the policies that you can highlight? Because obviously you look at California at this point is the king of collectivist or communist ideology, only in comparison to maybe New York. I guess they're battling for that throughout the country. She was very much a part of that process. I see Newsom right now has really, I think, almost put the final nails in the coffin. I don't necessarily know how it comes back. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. But what are some of those policies?
Well, she was two things. She was very much part of the Black Lives Matter movement. She's very close to Alicia Garza, the founder of Black Lives Matter, who is also very close was part of the Chinese Progressive Association, Communist China's biggest front in San Francisco. Black Lives Matter is a Chinese communist operation. So Kamala is very much part of that. She's very much into the race politics. The Maoist politics focus on race. The Black Panthers were a Maoist group. Black Lives Matter is a Maoist group. They focus on racial division. She is also a big part of the precursors to the prison abolition movement, the attacks on police. The goal of the left is to basically destroy the police forces, the justice system, to create chaos, exactly as they're doing in San Francisco and similar places, to usher in socialism, to usher in the revolution. So she is part of, there's hardly a Marxist cause that she's not involved in, but I would say Black Lives Matter and attacks on the police, attacks on the justice system would be right up there for her.
Well, let's go to run in 2020, because no matter what backing she has from the establishment, she didn't really connect with the American people on any level. This is a person that couldn't get 3%, was one of the first people out of that race. And I often, point to the fact that I can't see anywhere that there is even a moment of significance in her vice presidency in the most outwardly puppeted administration of my lifetime. And again, I wasn't around when Woodrow Wilson was around, but at least he could speak. I find, I find it like pretty hard to believe we've ever been in this situation in this country that we've been in now. So if you can't point to one achievement, how is it her moment on the cover of Time magazine? If you didn't get one vote, go ahead.
Her only achievement is her race and her gender. That's it. This all goes back to the Rainbow Coalition of the 1980s, when Jesse Jackson ran on the Rainbow Coalition for the Democratic nomination for president twice. And his idea, which he got from the Black Panthers, was to run on race. You get the white progressives, the brown progressives, the yellow progressives, the red progressives, all the colors of the rainbow. And this is his terminology together. Now, the same Maoists that were backing Jesse Jackson, because it was a Maoist operation, were the same Maoists that then backed Barack Obama, and the same Maoists that are now backing Kamala Harris. And the logic is, it's all about race. You run progressive candidates of color, and you use their race and gender to mobilize your base. The women, the blacks, the Latinos, the Asian Americans, whatever. And that's how you get a majority. That's how Obama won twice. But the thing about Obama, he could actually speak, and he was articulate and reasonably intelligent. Kamala doesn't have that. So she can only run on her race and gender, and that's all they're going to promote. This is going to be a race and gender focused election, because they got nothing else to run on, but they just want to get it close enough so they can cheat the rest of the way. Because Joe Biden, he would have been trailing by 15 points, and you can't cheat 15 points. But you can maybe cheat 3 points or 2 points, So that's really what she's there for, to rally the woman vote, rally the young people vote, an empty suit, an empty head, the right color, the right gender, and will be the whole focus. And of course, slamming Trump at every opportunity.
Well, first of all, let me just say that I think that you could probably cheat a few more points than 2 or 3. I don't think you can get to 15, like you said.
Well, you're right. But
just color me skeptical on that point. That's all I'm saying. Is that again, I'm with you that you just have to create the illusion or the narrative of plausibility to give it to Kamala Harris. She doesn't.
That is all it is.
Yes.
They don't think she can win, but they think with enough PR behind her and enough denigration of Trump, they can get her within striking distance.
I would agree
that they couldn't have done that with Biden. That was hopeless.
And I agree on that point. I just feel like Kamala Harris is also a tough sell, much tougher of a sell than, say, a Michelle Obama, who spoke
If
at
they
the
could
DNC.
have got Michelle to run, they would have. But why would she do that? She's more popular than Oprah Winfrey. She got tons of money. Why would she get her hands dirty? When Kamala would do exactly what she's told. Barack Obama runs Kamala Harris. It's the same Maoist little group behind all of them, and so she's just a puppet. And I'm very surprised she even agreed to debate Trump. I'm skeptical that they will even go ahead, because they do not want her speaking to the American public. They just want her photo on the news, shaking hands, first woman president, first president woman of color. Great, that's it. That will be the entire campaign if they can do that.
So let's take a break really quick, because I want to talk about future scenarios to try to legitimize Kamala Harris as the president of the United States. I want to talk the Barack star. I even want to talk a little bit more about Michelle. Fascinating conversation with Trevor Loudon, as always. More Making Sense of the Madness after this.
The world is about to shift, Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
What if this happened to you when you're alone? Or what if it happened here? With MedGuard Alert, you're never alone. You can connect with medical professionals anywhere, anytime. And now MedGuard is introducing our exclusive new Care Watch. If you need help quickly, use it from anywhere to contact medical professionals. No cell phone required. The Care Watch is not only a life-saving medical alert device, it's a revolutionary health monitoring system that checks your blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and much more. And here's the best part. If you have Medicaid, you may qualify to get your Care Watch for free. The Care Watch is only available through MedGuard Alert. Call us right now. We have monitoring programs starting as low as $1 a day. The call is free, activation is free, shipping is free, and no contract is required. Remember, with Medicaid, you may qualify to get your Care Watch for free. Don't wait. Call us to get your Care Watch right now. Operators are standing by.
We are back with Trevor Loudon. And Trevor, all right, let's look at where we are. Kamala Harris, like you said, no achievements, not very articulate, not very popular. All right. And I would also argue, even since that she's been announced as the presumptive nominee in the very beginning, not doing any press, right? Like, again, you can hate Trump. I'm in Iowa. I had lunch at the treehouse 24 hours later. Trump was in that treehouse handing out pizzas to people, signing things, very much amongst the crowd. He's done this time and time again. This woman can't navigate a convenience store with a film crew and aides. I don't know if you saw the Doritos handoff that was supposed to be corn nuts, but total disaster. I mean, they don't even seem human. Hasn't had a press conference where she's been asked any type of questions, hasn't had a real rally without some kind of a top-tier music act that is drawing the vast majority of those people in. Really, the only time you see her is being sold with this media narrative, for instance, on RuPaul's Drag Race. Now,
right,
I see this. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. So I see this, and it's apparent to me they don't want to roll this woman out in the same fashion they don't want to roll Biden out. Now, on the other end of that spectrum, I thought Barack Obama, whether you love him or hate the guy, he was on his game at the DNC. You know, he was like an old rock star coming out, playing the greatest hits. It's like seeing the Rolling Stones again for the very first time, right? He was very on point, very much with the message. The hope and change was back. And really, his wife, Michelle, did a pretty good job of introducing him, getting the crowd going, etc. That being said, you just mentioned Barack Obama, Michael Flynn, many other people feel like he is running the country much as a middleman for this agenda. This isn't necessarily his agenda, but he's directing things on the ground in D.C. I agree with you that. Well, I agree with you that if she gets in, that is the direction and where it will come from. So the question is, what happens if they just install her before the election? And what do I mean by that? We're not going to 25th Amendment, Joe, but just something. We have a world event. God knows what, the real October surprise. And all of a sudden, Joe Biden's just not competent enough. All of a sudden, there's the chirp in the media that he can't really be the president. We got to get Kamala in there. They swear her in. She's now been legitimized as the first woman president of the United States just before the election. I think that gives that narrative facade. Number one, do you think that's a possibility? What does it look like if that happens? And then kind of comment on the Obama and keeping Kamala away from the press.
I think that is a possibility, yes. I think they'll be getting increasingly desperate. I notice the Las Vegas bookies have put Trump ahead now. Trump was well ahead under Biden, and the bookies, they're very reliable guides to how elections will go. And they put Trump well ahead of Biden. Kamala gets in, she starts to get ahead of Trump a little bit. Now Trump's back in front. And I think that's going to continue up until election, I think the gap's going to get wider and wider. So yes, in October we could have a war, we could have a major crisis on our hands, terrorist attacks. That's we got probably 60,000 foreign national military guys on our soil right now. So God knows what could happen. And so yes, I think that's a distinct possibility to give her that respectability and that stature of the office. They'll pull out any stunt they can to get her close, just to get her close.
So, what do you think we can expect over the next few weeks and months? DNC is behind us. As you stated, you're skeptical of whether a debate will happen. On the other side of that, you do have Trump really going for the youth vote in a way that he hadn't in the last cycle.
Yep.
You got him not only at the Libertarian National Convention, you've got him at the Bitcoin conference, you've got him on the Logan Paul podcast. He just did Theo Vaughn. He seems to really. And here's the thing, when I talk to people, when they talk to me, they go, I don't think anybody's really undecided in this election. I go, for the most part, I think you're right. I think that people that normally vote, they already know who they're voting for, right? But who can you get registered to bring in? And that's why I believe that he's doing these things. RFK Jr. throwing his weight behind him. Does that make a significant change in your mind? And, how does the other side run a campaign if they're not really going to have Kamala Harris campaign? Are they going to run it on walls?
Well, they're going to try, but Walz is hugely problematic as well, and now under investigation for his ties to China. And my upcoming book will talk about his very deep communist ties, and they ain't just to China, I can assure you of that. But anyway, they look, it's going to be a complete PR campaign. It's all going to be about attacking Trump and photo ops. That's all it's going to be. Kamala's rolled out some policies, but she's not really going to campaign hard on them because they won't stand up to scrutiny. Even most of the left is not particularly impressed with what she's rolled out so far. So, and they have been extreme left wing. There's no doubt about that. So this is going to be an election based purely on emotion to try and get the young and the women and the Asian Americans, Black Americans, who have been moving more and more towards Trump, but she's trying to claw the black women back into the camp, get them voting, and maybe draw some of the black men who have been moving more conservative in recent times. So, I think it's pretty plain what they're going to try and do, but what we can't factor in is what surprises come along. Is there a terrorist attack? Is there a major international incident that America gets drawn into? Does Kamala Harris become the president and we all rally around the president in a time of crisis, 2 weeks before the election? Like when John F. Kennedy was shot, Barry Goldwater was running against him. As soon as John F. Kennedy was shot, you knew the election was going to Johnson. There was no LBJ. There was no Barry Goldwater knew it was over at that point. So, this is the way it is. It's
well, Trevor, let me stop you just for a second because you brought up Kennedy, and I think it's kind of important, right? We're living in a very different world. If 6 weeks ago that bullet goes through Trump's skull on national television, period. I mean, forget about October surprises. I don't really know what world we're in, right? Because number one, had it happened, the media would have been totally different. Or had that same thing happened to, say, Joe Biden or even any other former president, there would have been 24-hour news coverage of it. It would have been on the cover of every magazine, etc. Newspaper, it wasn't, right? Yeah. And, I don't think this guy's out of the woods. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They've tried to play it like it never even happened. And then we don't even have to get into all the very odd details of crooks and the Secret Service. And look, again, I'm very skeptical of what happened there as well. I don't think we're going to get a real investigation. And I think that's very telling of where we are as a nation. But we'd be in a completely different world. We necessarily wouldn't have had the RNC right after that. There would have been no presumptive nominee. Obviously, people like Nikki Haley would have probably been throwing their hat into the mix again. Who knows? So you're already in a very chaotic situation. That seems to have failed. Now, I don't know that they won't try that again, but what is your take on that? What world do you think we would be living in if Trump had been assassinated?
Well, I think it would have been, the country would have dissolved into chaos pretty quickly. There would have been probably some people would have tried retribution, which would have played right into the hands of the left. I was actually very proud of the American people and how restrained they were. You know, that this was clearly, there'd been a campaign of hatred against the president for years. And this either inspired a lunatic to make a mistake or something more sinister. We don't know exactly what happened. But it would have been, I think it would have been pushed us over the edge. I think if you didn't believe in miracles before that event, you'd have to be a pretty cynical not to believe in them now, I think. You know, that was God's hand. You know, that was a signal to me that God does not want this country lost, and people better get darn well busy to make sure it isn't. You know, he gave us a signal, we better do our part. That's the message I got from that. That's the world I see we're in right now.
Well, let me just say this. You know, I play it pretty straight when we get into those angles. You know, I don't tell people what to believe, etc. I believe that, there's at least a force of good and evil out there in the ether, etc. And with something like that, had it gone not only the other direction, but against the other person, I would have been just as concerned. You know, if a bullet grazed Biden or went through his head, I would have been just as upset, because, again, you just talked about the country degrading into some type of chaos. And, either one of those people gets shot, there is some type of chaos. Biden gets shot. I mean, you're in martial law status more than likely in a lot of places, right?
And people have been arrested all over the place.
And I'm not necessarily convinced that the plan wasn't to get rid of Trump and then get rid of Biden in quick succession. And I also think that might have actually played into him stepping down. And what do I mean by that? There hasn't been a successful shot gotten off against the president of the United States in 43 years before that. So you had 43 years.
And every election cycle is multiple threats. Every election cycle, people were arrested for threats to the president.
Well, all I'm saying is that, maybe Joe Biden's not with it anymore, but he certainly had Secret Service protection for quite some time now in a plethora of arenas. And so is Jill. Yeah, and that's where I'm going with this. I can just see, Secret Service Agent A walking over to Jill Biden being like, man, can't believe they got a shot off at Trump. That's kind of crazy, don't you think? Hate to see something like that happen to Joe and just walk off.
Look, look at those implicit threats. I think I'd love to see the severance package Joe got for standing down. I think he would have got a very big payout of some kind from the DNC and some guarantees for both himself and his son should the Democrats win. And so that is it's a fascinating period to be alive in. But I think this is the defining moment for America, because if this election goes one way, we're going to have 30 million illegals legalized in this country, and the Democrats will rule forever, and they will rule for communist China, and they will destroy the country. Or if Trump is elected, we have a fighting chance to turn this country around. And I think whether you think it's just good versus evil or God versus Satan, whatever you believe, I think we all agree there was something about that bullet. There was. If the bullet had missed him by a significant amount, that would have been an incident. But if the bullet had killed him, well, that would have been another incident. But the fact that it grazed his head and gave him the opportunity to go down and come up pumping the air, I think there are going to be millions and millions of Americans who have that picture in their mind when they go to the ballot box. I think that courage that he showed under fire, everybody will be thinking, could I have done that? Do I want my leader to have that kind of character? I think if Trump wins, and I'm pretty sure he will, that shot, it played a huge part in it.
Well, I do think that no matter how much they've tried to alter that narrative, and you even had deep fakes, I don't know if you saw these, of that picture where they took the Secret Service agents. I had them all smiling to try to play the staged angle. I remember people were posting that. I'm like, that's not the real picture, guys. That took 30 seconds in Photoshop with the AI generation. My God. We got to take a break. I want to talk about, you think Trump's going to get in. Who are the communists? What are the organizations that he needs to go after right out of the gates? And who does he bring in to ensure that that can actually happen? With Trevor Loudon, more making sense of the madness after this.
I don't know about you, but I have to have that cup of coffee in the morning. And Kingdom Cup is mold-free, it is pesticide-free, and it is organic. It's got this flavor that is delicious. You don't even have to put cream or sweetener in it.
Why did we go with the bean form, the whole bean? Because ultimately the powder form is the one that gathers the most moisture. And that means the more potential mold development. This is actually organic, mold-free, certified. That's important because ultimately people drink coffee. It's cultural. And so we tried to meet the culture where it is and create a healthy alternative.
Make the healthy choice for you and your family. Try mold-free, pesticide-free, and it's organic. Delicious Kingdom Cup coffee. And it's available now at the Patriot TV store. Go to patriot.tv and click on store. You'll find Kingdom Cup coffee in the health and wellness section. Order Kingdom Cup coffee at the Patriot TV store now.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Stealth, Kamala Harris's Communist Roots is the book. The author is Trevor Loudon. Obviously, we've been talking about a plethora of issues, but honing in on what you see as the Communist Party, their influence, etc. Trump gets in there. How does he fight this quote-unquote deep state, globalist agenda, etc., whatever you want to call it? For me, one of the big things with Ramaswamy that I liked is him coming in and saying, we're going to cut all the bureaucracies in half day one. And then we're going to look at these agencies, et cetera, and see which ones we keep and which ones we substitute with something that's, more in line with our constitutional republic. I thought that's great. Yeah. I don't know whether you can do that or not.
Oh, look, Milei is doing it in Argentina. He's taking a chainsaw to these bureaucracies. See, this is the thing. We are funding the revolution through the federal government. Much of our federal government spends all its time funneling our tax dollars to revolutionary groups, to BLM groups, to immigrant, to gay agenda groups. We are funding our own destruction, and that is a critical thing. And Ramaswamy is perfectly right to say that we've got to take an absolute chainsaw to the federal bureaucracy. But I've got a few other plans as well that I think we need to implement.
And what are some of those plans? Because, for me, again, I don't think we've seen criminal accountability in an executive within the executive level since Iran-Contra. I think a lot of that was, commutes after the fact or pardons. Even Ollie North, that ran a significant portion of it, but obviously wasn't the lead guy, got book deals, TV shows, and radio programs, right? That's not really discouragement from doing these type of operations.
No, it isn't. Well, see, this is what I say. There's two main problems. We got the election problems And we've got the massive foreign infiltration of our government. We've got Iranian rings working in the Department of Defense. We've got massive Chinese infiltration, massive Russian infiltration, Cuban infiltration, North Korean infiltration. We've probably got, well over 250,000 enemy agents in the country, and they have co-opted many of our business leaders, political leaders, educational leaders, scientific leaders, media leaders, etc. So this is what you got to do. You got to treat this like an organized crime problem. And now to take down the mafia, this is what was done before World War II to take down Murder Inc., otherwise known as the Purple Gang. Note that this was a mafia assassin gang that was killing people all over America, and nobody dared to testify against them, and they had a whole bunch of cops on their payroll, so they were immune, okay? So they brought in Thomas Dewey, the prosecutor from New York, a Republican, and they said, take down Murder Inc. He personally interviewed 1,200 young men to get the best and the brightest to form a little untouchable squad. Then they went after Murder Inc. and they'd catch a low-level guy, for thuggery or extortion or something, and they'd say, right, we've got you for 10 years, or you get immunity from prosecution if you rat on the guy above you. Then they'd go and get the next guy up, and they'd give him the same deal, but this time it's 15 years, unless you rat on the guy above you. In 2 years, they took down the whole organization and put the leaders on the electric chair. It was gone. So what you need to do is you need to set up a new intelligence agency very quickly in America. Nobody from CIA, nobody from FBI, people from special forces, police forces, IRS, very, very vetted, very trusted, to get a small force. And it's all about weeding out foreign infiltration. Then the president declares a general amnesty. Every American traitor, every foreign agent in America, you have got 3 months to come forward and register your name with this new agency. You are then going to tell us every single thing you know, everything you did, everyone you betrayed, every crime you committed. And if you are honest and you rat out everybody you know, you'll get immunity from prosecution and witness protection. And if you haven't done it in the end of 3 months, we're going to have so much evidence, we're going to come after you and you'll go to jail for 40 years. You would see 100,000 Chinese leave the country in a month. You'd see Russian mobsters sell their mansions in Miami, leave the country. Cartel guys would leave the country. A whole bunch of senators would stand down for family reasons. A whole bunch of big tech and Wall Street guys would do the same, because it would completely melt down all of these networks, because the Iranian spy who was paying off the senator wouldn't know if the senator had taken a deal and was wearing a wire, and the senator wouldn't know if the Iranian had taken a deal and was wearing a wire. It would melt down the whole operation, and you would have a few people left that would be prosecuted and jailed for very long periods of time, and then the public would accept the security measures going forward to make sure this never developed again. And you'd apply the exact same principle to vote fraud. You'd go into the big inner city operations, treat it like mafia. It'd have to be done federally, because you can't clean up Los Angeles from California. You can't clean up Illinois from Chicago from Illinois. Federal operations in the big voting fraud operations in the big states. You go and find the low-level guys who are stuffing ballot boxes, 5 years in jail, or you tell us who paid you. You catch them, 10 years in jail, or tell us who paid you. You would shut down the whole vote fraud operation. You would shut down the foreign infiltration of America without firing a shot and only jailing a few.
Oh, it seems we lost Trevor for a moment. Hopefully he will be back in a second. The only thing that I would add to the idea of that special task force would be maybe sheriffs. Sheriff Grady down in Florida would be a great example of that. And perhaps that's how you really integrate that plan into the states. Do we have him back? All right.
So,
Okay. Sorry
so
about that.
yeah, where you lost me, but you got to treat foreign infiltration and vote fraud as organized crime problems, and you deal with it just like you take down, like Giuliani did with the mafia in New York. You get the rats, you get the low-level rats to rat out the people above them, and you shut organizations down by doing it that way. But you got to give people a way out. So their punishment is if they're willing to cough up, apologize to the American people, their punishment is between them and God. I'm willing to let them go as long as they rat out the people around them.
Well, let me just say this. Others like Alex Jones have kind of said that same thing, given amnesty to certain people and entities that have worked against the best interest of the United States. It sounds great. I don't know if we're ever going to get there, right? Like I also add the fact that
we have to. This is how the British took out the Thuggy gangs in India. This is how they took out the Purple Gang. This is how you take down mafia gangs. This tactic is applied all over the world, but we got to apply it now to politics. And I think Trump and the people around him know we've got to fix the elections once and for all, and we've got to get the traitors out of our government. And that's the way to do it.
So let's just talk about the elections really quickly, Trevor, because this is one of those really troublesome aspects of where we are in this country. I'll argue that over the last 20 years, especially implementing the system of these voting machines, proprietary software, the inability to audit them, that we have moved very, very far away from those free and fair elections. We're talking about points, whether it's 15 points. But, I mean, you look at something like 2004, right? Diebold was the main manufacturer at the time. I still, to this day, believe Kerry beat George Bush and just kind of stepped aside. Yale brothers, Skull and Bones brothers, distant cousins on both sides. And also, I argue that because of that, Kerry was very much in the forefront of a lot of this globalism over the years, especially in the arena of the climate. He ran way more of foreign policy in the Biden administration. Go ahead. Well, do you disagree that he's run more foreign policy with this Biden administration than obviously Joe Biden?
No, absolutely. He's, but he's got an extreme radical left-wing background. When Reagan was fighting communism in the 80s, he had three main enemies: Ted Kennedy in the Senate, Joe Biden in the Senate, and John Kerry, who my nickname for him is Jane Fonda with less testosterone. He's terrible, terrible man.
Well, I'm certainly no fan of the guy, but my point being is that, that was 20 years ago, the 2004 election, right? And we've only gone further and further with these machines and further away from any type of audit. Now to the point where I would argue Bev Harris, even Greg Palast back in the day, did a lot of really good work exposing those machines, things like GEM software. You had Hacking Democracy, the documentary on HBO, people being aware of it. You know what I mean? And they might have tried to demonize you in the public arena as a conspiracy theorist and a kook, but that's as far as it went. Fast forward to the 2020 elections, and if you dare question in the wrong way, they not only sued you into the ground, there are people being prosecuted, and they're trying to put you in prison. So I'm totally in agreement with you that we need to, go back to paper ballots, voter ID. I think we can improve the audit system. I think any system of this level, you're going to have a certain level of corruption, but you can certainly shield yourself from massive corruption and have the right type of audit so that people are criminally accountable. So we're going to take one last break. When we come back, I want to get your response to that. How do we do that? Because that's so important if we're going to put administrations in that are going to be able to fight this fight that you discussed. Final segment of Making Sense of the Madness after this.
Did you know that thousands of authors across the country have written books and published them with Page Publishing? If you've written a book, Page Publishing can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy for you. If we decide to publish your book, your work ends and ours begins. From copy editing and proofing to typesetting and book cover art, we get you printed, distributed, and sold on Amazon, Apple iTunes, and in bookstores across the country. We'll even help you promote your book. That's right, we do all this for you. Biography, self-help, mystery, novels, sci-fi, even a children's book. No matter what genre, Page Publishing can bring your book to life. Call today for your free author submission kit and find out how you can be the next published author at Page Publishing.
Call for your free author submission kit at 855-993-2114. That's 855-993-2114.
Attention patriotic businesses. Do you want to see your sales skyrocket by selling your products or services to like-minded patriots? Well, if you're an advertiser who embodies the timeless principles of freedom, liberty, and patriotism, look no further than Patriot TV. Our viewers are responsive, economically active patriots who are committed to supporting businesses like yours that align with their values. For more information on advertising on America's new network of proud American businesses, email us at advertise@patriot.tv.
Former National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
We are back with Trevor Loudon. And Trevor, we left off with the voting issue, the issue with the machines, and the persecution and now prosecution of the entities that dare to question and challenge them. So how do we overcome that?
Well, look, this is never going to change under the current party. So this has got to be done at state level, and it's got to be done at federal level. So Trump has to become the president, and then you have to start active prosecutions of people committing vote fraud. And you know, like, what is worse, stealing your car, burglarizing your house, or stealing your election? What is more damaging to your life in the long run? You can go to jail for stealing someone's car or burglarizing their house. You get a slap on the wrist or nothing for stealing an election. People have to go to jail for long sentences. Look, you could jail 6 people in America for 10 years each. You would just about eliminate the problem overnight. You know, because most people are not going to risk this. It should be a year in jail for simple vote fraud, like voting twice or voting out of your electorate, or a $10,000 fine or something. But for organized vote fraud, that should be a 5 to 10 year felony straight off. And at top levels, that should be, 30 years in jail. And unless that is brought in, we are going to have this continual battle in this country. Look, I think we're on the verge of a major realignment. I think if we can get the elections under control, I think the people are moving more and more conservative all the time. If the Republican Party can become more of a social conservative grassroots party like it was always supposed to be, I think the Republican Party would win 60 to 70% of all the fair elections. I think the country is moving in that direction. But we got to stop the fraud, because Democrats still vote because if there's any fraud, it benefits them. Republicans, we are losing 5 to 10% of our base in every election because they won't vote, because they think it's futile, because they think the machine's going to steal their vote. That's a disenfranchisement issue. That is a civil rights issue. People are opting out of the system because they don't believe the system will treat them fairly. And that's got to be addressed. And I think that will be a very high priority for the incoming administration.
Well, I think that's also why when I talk about, people making their decisions, that they are going after the new voters, because there are a lot of people out there that say, you know what, my brother's one of them. Registered for the first time last time around to vote for Trump, kind of begrudgingly, didn't love the guy, but obviously didn't want Biden, and seeing where it went. He's not voting this time around. He's like, you know what? My vote doesn't matter. The last time proved it. I'm like, well, I'm going to vote for the guy the third time, and I still think he's imperfect, and the system is far from imperfect. And I'm not just trying to do an exercise here, but at the same time, I think that you at least put yourself on a standing ground to talk about the anomalies or problems with the system when you participate at any level. And what do you think? Thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to put a spiritual aspect to this. I think we're going to need some divine intervention here. But have you ever seen a time where you get divine intervention to help cowards or losers or people who despair? You know, it's faith and courage that are going to get us through this. Everybody's got to have faith that we can win this, that right is right and wrong is wrong, and that we can overcome evil. You know, if people have that faith, I think God thinks, yeah, these people are worth helping. But if people are just going to give up, we can't do it. You know, the Catholics talk about this. The greatest sin is despair. Despair is a sin. It's a sin that is punishable because it tells God you have no faith. You've got no faith. America was built on faith. America was built by people who are willing to take on the world's greatest military empire because they had the faith that they could win and the faith in God and the faith that they were doing the right thing. I tell everybody, whether you think your vote's going to count or not, get out there and do it. Make your mark, have your say, do your best. Least then you can look your kids in the eye and say, I tried.
Well, let me just say this. Biblically, the Lord does help those that help themselves. And I would also reiterate that somebody like Martin Luther King Jr. even said there comes a time when silence is betrayal. And I think that time is long overdue.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah. There is no neutral ground here. We are facing, this is a battle between good and evil. And being neutral, you're on the side of evil. By de facto, you are supporting evil.
Trevor, I'm with you 100%. And all these people that have gone along to get along, or they come across disturbing information that doesn't align with their worldview, that go to me, you know what? I just don't want to know. Or they want to be, you know, I guess consciously resistant to any type of idea. They don't care. Cognitive dissonance, if you will. One of the things I've said, and, you know, the president has alluded to, that he will, if he gets back in, release the JFK documents, the 9/11 documents. Bannon's talked about the MLK, RFK documents. I think all that is absolutely necessary. I think the 9/11 ones are going to be extra tough to do. But if you can't show everybody the wounds that we have in this country, how are we supposed to heal them? So we only got about 4 minutes left in the broadcast. What are your thoughts on these declassifications? Because I'll tell you right now, if I actually believe, because, you know, he gave us his word he was going to give us the JFK documents the last time around. We got some. There was a lot of good stuff in there. I want all of them. You know, if you can't expose the deep state from 50 years ago, 60 years ago, how do you beat them today? But especially when it comes to 9/11, if I believed, I'd be out in the streets campaigning for the guy every single day. I'm pretty doubtful of that, but I want your thoughts.
You know, I think some of these things haven't been released. I think because it would have revealed a whole bunch of Russian collusion in these things. And that would have meant war. And I think they backed off.
Let me stop you. You froze up. You think that there would have been a lot of Russian collusion in the 9/11 attacks?
Absolutely, in 9/11, but also in the Kennedy assassination too.
Interesting.
But absolutely, the Russians trained Al Qaeda. You know, so you gotta. Well, they did. That's a fact. They trained the leader of Al Qaeda in Dagestan.
Brzezinski, sir, don't you also have people like Brzezinski back in the day also training the quote unquote freedom fighters and aligning with bin Laden? I mean, Brzezinski Le Monde interview talks about goading the Russians in on that border crisis through an attack through those type of operatives.
Yeah. There's all sorts of permutations here. But I agree with you that these things should be revealed. And I think the American people are in for some shocks and some assumptions that have been made and some propaganda they've listened to. I think the reason we're in the trouble we are now is because our government hasn't been willing to tell the truth for so long. and people have got too darn complacent and don't understand the actual threats we're under. You know, that is, I think, is the main problem. And I can understand that in a time of war, but in a time of peace, it's not acceptable. So, yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to declassifications, absolutely looking forward to these things being exposed. But I think we'll find some of the things will lead us in places we did not expect.
Couple of minutes left in the broadcast. What is the overarching message you'd like to leave my audience with, and where can they find the book and support your work, especially your previous work, because you've been in the game for a very long time, sir?
Yeah, I've made several movies about the infiltration of the churches. I've made done several books about the Marxist Congress members we have. But the Stealth, Kamala Harris's Communist Roots is my best. And it's not published yet, but people can go to trevorloudon.com, myname.com, and pre-order the book. It will be up on Amazon soon too, but we're just finishing off some stuff about new information about Tim Walz in the book. So trevorloudon.com. But I think the key message I want people to come away with is, look, we have a chance here, an exceptional chance to set this country in a whole new direction. If this election is lost, there's going to be 30 million illegal immigrants legalized. You are going to see an absolute attack on the conservative movement by the organs of government, the attacks on conservative businesses, attacks on conservative churches. Look, you are dealing with two hardcore pro-Chinese communists on the Democratic ticket. That is not hyperbole. That's not an exaggeration. Both of them have spent their whole lives in the communist movement. And they've got a whole bunch of people around them who want to finish this country off once and for all. Take your chance. Stand up for America this time. Get involved in the election. You might think it's hopeless, but all things are possible.
All right, Trevor, thank you so much, and thank you guys for watching this show right here on Patriot.tv, 5 days a week, where the truth lives. Remember, to this guy, it is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I absolutely love you guys. We'll see you on the flip side.